Hey guys, what's cracking? It's me, Kraken Nation. Today we're back with a series that we have regrettably not been able to pick up for quite a long while. I'm trying to get better. Gonna try to be better about keeping my other series going while I'm in the midst of all the CSL nonsense. I don't want my channel to be overly dominated by that. But today we're gonna be getting back into the Pokemon Teambuilding University, and today we're gonna be looking at an archetype that is personally a favorite of mine, and that is bulky offense. I used to play almost exclusively balanced, but I tried to challenge myself and tried to move more towards offense as I felt like the metagame, while it was kind of becoming more polarized, it was kind of disfavoring balance and starting to favor either hyper offense or stall. So essentially stall breaking versus stall. And so I wanted to really push myself in a direction that was going to be able to kind of orient me in that way. And so that's kind of how I got started with bulky offense, and is now the playstyle that I main almost entirely. So about bulky offense, we're going to be utilizing tanky, defensive, not necessarily defensive, but just generally tanky, bulky mons, prevent opponents' offense from gaining traction in key moments. What this basically means is that you don't want your opponent to just kind of set up their sweeper and walk through you, as while the description does say bulky offense, you aren't quite a balanced or even a defensive team where you can start taking hits from powerful attackers and like stop them from gaining too much offensive traction. What you really got to be aware of in bulky balance is that in bulky offense is that you have to keep, because you can't stop your opponent from gaining, you can't stop your opponent once they have control. What you're going to have to be able to do in bulky offense, which makes it a much harder archetype to play, I feel, than, at least much different to play than balance, is that rather than kind of control your opponent once they have the momentum, you need to kind of, at key moments in the battle, prevent your opponent from gaining momentum, and that's going to require a lot more prediction, a lot more ability to apply offensive pressure at directly right moments. So that it is kind of trickier, a little different than what balance asks for, but you really got to be able to stop opponents from gaining momentum at key moments, because you're not going to be able to do it by bringing defensive, which, as I've said in the past, defensive mons' goals are to stop the opponent's momentum, while offensive mons try to gain momentum. And a defensive mon won't be able to, a bulky offense team won't be able to stop them from gaining it. Won't be able to stop them once they have it. So you got to be able to stop them from gaining it. I hope I explained that well. It's going to be forcing opponent switches to allow team to gain chip damage for important KOs later on. This is similar to balance, honestly, and even kind of bulky balance. But essentially, because you're still defensive, you're kind of still trying to achieve a lot of switches earlier and middle of the game to kind of pave the way for a sweep. This is kind of I will say this is kind of a predominant play strategy in all strategies that have some degree of offense in them. Trying to gain chip damage so that you can KO things. You'll see if you look at the Smogon strategy decks that this KOs after rocks, this KOs after rocks, and a little bit of prior damage. So that those little prior damage or rock switches are going to be what kind of this is talking all about. It's essentially able to turn momentum around through usage of pivots, utilizing switches to gain favorable roll matchups and break down defense. Why I don't just say favorable matchups, and I say favorable role matchups, because more than just typing, bulky offense is a playstyle that builds itself a lot around the concept of wall breaking. Because a lot of wall breakers tend to be bulkier, slower mons with a lot more power. It's kind of built around, rather than necessarily always trying to achieve type matchup, which is something that balance tries to aspire more to do, you're going to be trying to match up your wall breakers against your opponent's proper walls. So that's kind of how you want to try to get those together. And so pivots are obviously very nice for that, as they allow you to switch around, always try to keep matchups in your favor. That's essentially what grabbing momentum through the use of initiative is that pivots are going to be able to switch around and keep the momentum on your side of the field. And so once those Pokemon in, you'll hopefully be able to break down their defense. Generally leaning more towards offense, albeit with the ability to tank hits at times as well. This kind of sums us back up to the beginning of the battle, where you have some bulk, or beginning of the video I should say, you have some bulk to take a hit or two, but you really got to lean more towards offense and kind of stopping the opponent from getting there at all, ideally. So we're going to get into the elements of the team right off the bat. We're going to have utility leads, which is a balanced team. And again, I can't get rid of these lines. I'm sorry about that. They're here to stay, I guess. Utility leads are balanced teams, oh man, I forgot to change this to bulky balance, but bulky offense. Bulky offense teams highly value leads that are capable of giving form utilities such as hazards and status to the team. So this is going to be basically helping you gain that chip damage, helping you pave the way for your offense to do the things that it needs to do. So some Pokemon that come to mind are Sticky Webs, Reflect and Light Screen, or Spike, Stealth, Rock. These are all things that will definitely should be considered on a staple of any bulky offensive team. With any type of hazard comes the need for hazard clearing. Because you're going to be focusing on getting switches on your opponent, Rapid Spin and Defog are going to be important for allowing you to switch as well, because as we said, you're going to be making use of pivots. This is still a playstyle where a defensive pivot can be potentially useful, because a defensive pivot can be useful for scouting for switches, gaining chip damage, and spreading status. Essentially, a defensive pivot can give you a good backbone to fall back on and take that hit that you need to take before, and then maybe you turn out or switch out, and allow that offensive Pokemon that's going to stop whatever's the threat that's in front of you. A defensive pivot can be the way to get that thing in for free, potentially. So these are all some good examples of that. Between their Slowbro has Regenerator that makes it very ideal. Ferrothorn has the ability to run Iron Barb's Rocky Helmet with good natural bulk. And then Rotom Wash has, of course, Volt Switch and a good amount of natural bulk as well. We also have offensive pivots, which is a defense. Oh, man. I really mess up a lot of these things. An offensive pivot can be useful for gaining chip damage and gaining momentum through aggressive switches. So you're going to be able to put a lot of pressure on your opponent. Basically, this is kind of the counter to defensive. An offensive pivot will be able to come in, switch out, do some damage, help you. These are going to be really the mons that are going to try to afford you that favorable role matchup without losing you offensive pressure. Whereas these will be hopefully to keep your opponent from getting that pressure. So that's basically what offensive pivots are. They're kind of two sides of the same coin. Special tanks are able to absorb hits and retaliate with hard special attacks. So special tanks are going to be cool because they can definitely take hits. This used to be Hoopa Unbound in the middle here, but Hoopa Unbound recently got banned, so I put Togetic there instead. Essentially, special tanks are going to be the way you can kind of take a hit and dish back some hard damage. Take out that threat that needs to be taken out for your sweeper or something to start going off. We got physical tanks. A physical tank is able to absorb hits and retaliate with strong physical attacks. It's basically the exact same equivalent to a special tank. Again, a lot of these rules double up, so a lot of these Pokemon could be considered potential wall breakers. In both of these categories, you could have a nasty plotting Togekiss or a Specs Heatran to wall break. Choice Band of Azumarill could wall break. There's always some options to double up on these rolls. So again, you're going to be seeing the physical tanks able to take a hit or two and dish back some hard damage. New to the bulky offense, not new actually, I take that back. But a physical sweeper is able to boost up his attack and or speed to punch holes and dismantle teams. Again, this is kind of the end game plan for what your team should be aspiring to do, even with bulky offense, is that you're trying to still get yourself to that win condition of how do I get my sweeper in the field and then proceed to win from there. A special sweeper being the opposite of that role, is able to boost up its special attack, take advantage of the team's weaker special defense, and dismantle teams. New to the bulky offense, this is what I want to say. New to bulky offense is the physical wall breaker. A physical wall breaker is quickly able to produce a massive amount of physical offense in an effort to overwhelm and break down defensive cores and defensive Pokemon. Basically, these are some of the strongest physical attackers in OU. This is not exclusive to this. We also have things like Choice Banded Victini. I'm kind of drawing a blank. Choice Banded Azumarill for sure. There's just Pokemon that are hard to switch into, take a lot of damage no matter what they're hitting, and that things like this come to mind. So basically the point of a wall breaker is to kind of dismantle defensive cores so that your sweeper or cleaner can come in later in the game and tear it apart from there. Finally, we have special wall breakers. A special wall breaker is able to quickly produce massive amount of special offense in an effort to overwhelm and break down defensive cores and Pokemon. All three of these are very prime examples. Something like Tailglow Manaphy obviously being a huge threat. Calm Mind Gardevoir can bust some stuff up, and Serperior also being a great option with that contrary Leaf Storm. Finally, for an example of a team, this is actually the team I've been using on the ladder quite recently. This is most of the time the team that I'm laddering with. This is a pretty good example of bulky balanced team. First off, we've got Tank Chop. Tank Chop fits right at home with all bulky offense teams, because bulky offense is a playstyle that really values Tank Chop's ability to take a hit without losing you too much offensive pressure in general. It also serves as the rocker for this team, which again is really important when you're trying to force those switches. We got Volt Switch Rotom. So Volt Switch will give us that initiative to kind of switch in our offensive Pokemon such as T-Tar and Medicham when the roll timing is right. It also gives us the ability to get status along with another potential bird check, kind of helping the synergy of this team because Medicham really fears those bird types, and specifically Talonflame can burn T-Tar in some situations if it's wearing a Stall Breaker set, and that makes T-Tar kind of less effective in general. So if you don't risk that, Rotom Wash can be a potentially safer bet. So T-Tar is going to be, this is a Scarf T-Tar. Could be banded, but I prefer Scarf to give me that extra bit of speed control for late game. Scarf T-Tar is cool because it's another potential bird check as well as a Pursuit Trapper. So it Pursuit Traps Latios, and although I don't really need to Pursuit Trap Latios because I have 2 Pokemon on this team that can very easily deal with Latios. It also specifically helps me against Ghost types that want to try to trap, that want me to miss high jump kicks, as well as Crunch gives me a nice strong option to hit bulky Psychics, who otherwise Medicham struggles to break through. We got Skarmory here. Skarmory is basically our answer to Fairy types, which otherwise this team gets absolutely trounced by. This is a Spadef Skarmory. Spadef Skarmory fits really well on a lot of bulky balance team because if we go back in time, you can see a lot of these Pokemon have a really hard time dealing with things like Clefable, Unaware Clefable, or something like that. Just Fairy types in general tend to be a really big threat to more offensive playstyles. Just kind of how the way the Fairy types of OU work. So Skarmory is essentially just a check/counter to most Fairy types and special attackers in general. It's nice to see Hoop Unbound banned because Hoop Unbound could kind of overwhelm little old Skarm. But beyond that, Skarmory also gives us defog support. I run sometimes defog or Toxic to help me break down things like Slowbro, whose team could otherwise struggle with potential Calm Mind defensive Slowbro. Yeah, that's basically all I have about that. Medicham is what this team is built around. Basically, everybody here is kind of help Medicham accomplish the goal, which is just take names. Medicham being obviously one of the premier wall breakers of OU on the physical side. High Jump Kick just honestly just crushes souls. Finally, we have Clefable. Clefable taking on Sableye, who otherwise basically wrecks this team. Clefable is also running Flamethrower to beat Ferrothorn, who I also just am usually not running coverage for beyond High Jump Kick. I like to, on most of my teams, secure at least 2 ways to beat a certain Pokemon. Like in the bag, know that I can beat this Pokemon 100% of the time with this move or this set. So I like to try to keep that in the bag. So Flamethrower, essentially, that's what that gives me there. Lures and Scissor, Lures and Ferrothorn, and those are basically completely handled from there. As well as Sableye is basically completely stopped. Regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions about bulky offense, definitely leave a comment in the section below, as it is a playstyle that I think I have a good amount of experience with and I really enjoy. I really like this playstyle. Regardless, if you enjoyed this video, leave a comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. It's always very appreciated. But until next time, I will see you guys later. Kraken Nation out.